So hopefully it's recording at least me anyway. So I'm gonna talk about, so we've been exploring the threefold way. So Hoshpaba started us off last week with Sila. So the three of the threefold way are Sila, Samadhi, and Pranya. So ethics, meditation, and wisdom, you could translate them as. And tonight, as Shubha has just said, I'm going to talk about Samadhi. And a lot of people sort of translate Samadhi as meditation, but that's a very broad term. Meditation is a very broad term, as is Samadhi actually, and has many meanings. Sometimes it's translated as mindfulness, but it's far more complex than that. And so I just thought I'd give you a brief, so this is a sort of two-part talk. We're going to look at Samadhi as a term, and then I'm going to look at a specific application, a specific Samadhi that I think is important. So Samadhi, the term, has a history. The term in meditation has a history older than Buddhism. It's a pre-Buddhist term. It comes from the Vedas, so it has a slightly different meaning within the Vedas, so within the pre-Buddhist world, the Brahminical world, than in Buddhism. It actually means the goal of the path, really. It means union with Brahma, so it signifies union with Brahma, and it signifies a highly elevated meditational state, a held meditational state within those early meditation and practices, so pre-Buddhist. When the Buddha got hold of it, the term that is, he did some of these practices, but he also changed the sort of meaning of Samadhi, and gave it a much more, I think, a nuanced meaning. So it's a much subtler meaning. And one way Sangharakshita describes this quite nicely in the Guide to the Buddhist Path. So, and he says in the Guide to the Buddhist Path, this is not concentration in the sense of forcible fixation of the mind on a single object, but concentration in the sense of the unification and integration that comes about quite naturally when, in that state of intense happiness, all our emotional energies are flowing together in the same direction. So that is actually very different from the Samadhi pre that. So when I started in meditation, I didn't start in Buddhist meditation, I started in Vedic meditation. So meditation learned from the Upanishads and early Vedic teachings. And that meditation, so the goal of that meditation was to achieve Samadhi, this union with the ultimate, with God in effect. And it was a very forced type of meditation. And that meditation is sort of carried over, or that type of meditation is carried over into yoga these days. When you do yoga meditation, it's a very sort of a controlled state. But the Buddha didn't want to see it in this way. So if you remember his experiences of ascetic practices, of forcing himself to do things, starving, and forcing himself to attain these sort of very concentrated mental states, made him realize that that wasn't the answer. That wasn't the answer. So a much more relaxed form of meditation came about with the Buddha, where it's just it is a unification, a relaxed unification of all our energies. So not a forced position that you're forcing yourself into, but you're moving forward into a relaxed state, a relaxed higher mental state. And we see this, and we see this positioning of it from the 12 Nidanas, the 12 positive Nidanas, not the Wheel of Life, the 12 positive Nidanas. Now, if I've got this correct, I think I can show you where I mean. So I'm going to try and share my screen with you, and we should be able to share. Oops, that's not the right thing. Hold on. Just going back. It may or may not work. We'll just see. Ah, that's better. Good. Can you see that?
Yes.
That should be fairly clear. Thank you. And so this is the 12 positive nidanas that we use. There are other lists, but this 12 is the one we tend to use. And as you can see there, samadhi is translated as concentration in this particular listing. And you can see that it comes sort of partway through. And it comes actually after tranquility. So we've got gladness, rapture, tranquility and happiness, all are stages of the path before we get to samadhi, before we get to what's often called a concentrated state. But it's a concentration that is born of happiness. Okay, so that's good to remember that. Okay. So, just being aware of time, I need to move on to the second part, and probably the main part of this talk is about one particular aspect of samadhi, and I think this particular aspect is a very important stage. So this is a modern application. So this is an aspect of samadhi that the Buddha didn't emphasize. The Buddha didn't talk about this. This was relatively modern. Okay, so it's quite an innovation. So in meditation practice, it's quite a leap forward, and it happened about 1500 years ago. So relatively modern. 1,000 years after the Buddha had passed away, after the parinirvana of the Buddha. This I think it's quite groundbreaking, and especially for us in the West, it's quite an important step has been introduced into Buddhist meditation, using the idea of samadhi, and that is Upachara Samadhi, as it's termed. And this was introduced by Buddhaghosa in the 5th century. Okay, so 1500 years ago, in the 5th century. He was a Sri Lankan monk, lived in a monastery in Sri Lanka, and he wrote something called the Visuddhimagga, the Path of Purity, which is basically a meditation manual. A lot of it is to do with meditation and how to meditate. He's collecting ideas from his monastery, from surrounding monasteries, and collecting them together into this volume. And a lot of people take their meditation teaching and their meditation, their view of meditation, really from Buddhaghosa rather than the Buddha. It's had a big influence on Buddhist meditation. So, but I'm going to talk about this Upachara Samadhi. Now, Upachara Samadhi, we call access concentration or neighborhood concentration. And I think, as I say, it's very important. I think it's very important for us in the West. So this is a state of samadhi, so a relaxed, a happy state that comes after the sort of setup, after the preliminary stages, but before we enter the higher echelons of the dhyanas. Okay, so it's like a safe area, a toehold. If you were climbing, it's like a ridge that you can just rest on if you were climbing up a cliff. And you can just relax into this space before moving on again to the peak. So I think it's very important for us in the West, because what this gives us is the ability to know where we are within our meditation. So up to this point, we've been becoming concentrated. So we've been focusing, say, on our breath, or on the metta bhavana, on some aspect, some object we've been focusing on. We've been constantly bringing our mind back to that. So we've just done a body scan, a body meditation, and we've been constantly probably bringing ourselves back to our body, back to the sensation that our body gives us. But we're constantly drawn away. So it's a bit of a will, a bit of a battle. So we are being quite prescriptive in how we treat that. We're trying to put the hindrances away, and we're trying to put our discursive mind away, and we're trying to be focused. And if we do that enough, we will be able to put those discursive thoughts, those hindrances, to one side. They will slowly no longer come up so strongly within our consciousness. And it's when they start to do that, when the hindrances start to relax their hold on us or their ability to distract us, that we move into access concentration. And for us in the West, this is very important because we lead a very busy life. Okay, so the West, there's a lot of distraction. So if you like, there's a lot of, within the 5 hindrances, there can be a lot for any single individual trying to meditate. So if you think back to the Buddha's time, so I mentioned that the Buddha didn't have this Upachara Samadhi. He didn't have this stage in his meditation practice. And the reason is, I think, is because he didn't need it. Because if you think back to the Buddha and his followers, and his disciples and the people who were with him 2,500 years ago, they were living a very simple life. They had very few possessions. They wandered around from place to place, disseminating the Buddha's teachings, and they had a lot of time to spend in meditation. So in personal study, in meditation. So it would seem they would probably spend maybe 8 hours a day in meditation, at least. Okay, so if you're doing that amount of meditation, and we can only really get that sort of level of meditation whilst on retreat, but at home we can't do that. And so the Buddha's followers could spend all that time, work on their meditation, battle with the hindrances, work on discursive thoughts to distract them, and get themselves into the higher mental states, get themselves into the dhyanas. We don't really have that luxury often. We're having to work, earn money. We've got quite a householder lifestyle in the West. Few of us, even in the Triratna order, have the time and the space to spend 8 hours every day meditating. So this stage, this Upachara Samadhi, so this access concentration gives us the ability to step, to rest, to achieve something worthwhile. And then maybe when we're in a good frame of mind, maybe when we're on lockdown, for instance, or on retreat, we can move into the dhyanas with ease, because we've established ourselves in this early samadhi, this relaxed state. So if we can work on that every day, getting into, for as long as possible, into access concentration, and working out how to stay there, what it takes to maintain that, how we can achieve it, and what takes us out of it, what distracts us. Is it something outside of us or something inside of us? Is it one of our hindrances reasserting itself or not? Or is it something else? So we play, we've got time to play with this samadhi, with this state. And once we understand it, how it works for us and how we can dwell in it, we can then move on at various points, whenever we like it almost, if we have time, into the dhyanas. But it's good to play in this state. So this is a very creative state. It's a state where goals can come up. It's a state where visions can arise. It's a state where bodhisattvas can talk to us. It's a wonderful place to dwell. So our clarity, our analytical thinking is still there, is still with us. It's not like moving into the dhyanas where they're starting to fall away and words no longer have much meaning. So we can analyze what we're doing. we can study, bring the Dharma into our meditation at this point. Say maybe taking what we've picked up from our Mitra study or various studies and use it within this space, in this Upachara Samadhi, to dig deeper within our consciousness. So this state of Upachara Samadhi is a liminal state. It's a bardo. It's between two states, two worlds, the world of higher mental states and the world of normal samsaric states. So it provides a respite as we're moving forward, hopefully, into the higher mental states, from the samsaric world, from the strivings that we've had to just do to become concentrated. So it's also a movement from focusing, it's also a place where we're changing. So it's a moving place, it's a liminal place where we've been previously focusing in on our body. So we're doing the mindfulness of breathing, say, we're focusing in on an aspect of our body, of our physical body. But in this state, we're starting to move to let go of the sensations of the body. We're passing beyond them. We've set up the body, we're happy with the body, we're contented with our body, we've relaxed it, we've looked at our breathing process, how we're working with our body, and we're content. There is joy, rapture building up within our body. And this joy and rapture is the energy we're going to use to move into the dhyanas. But in this state, we're just building it up. In this Upachara Samadhi, in this access concentration, we're just working on building that energy up. So allowing the sensations of the body to die away, just feeling comfortable. So maybe the sounds outside of the room, for instance, there's noises going outside here, birds singing, they disappear and we no longer listen to them. We no longer hear them. They're still there, but we're starting to focus internally on our own internal noises, on our own internal sensations, the sensations of the mind. So this state is like a stasis. So if we can get here, if we can get into access concentration, and I hope many of you can, looking at who's listening to me, it enables us to move forward. It allows great possibilities. As I said, it's a creative space. And it can be, and it's moving into the dhyanas too soon can be quite frightening for some people. The experience of the dhyanas can be very unsettling. It's a mental space that we're unused to. It's not our usual way of thinking in the dhyanas, not our usual way of experiencing ourselves. Whereas this samadhi, this access concentration, is relatively safe. It's got one foot in one world and one foot in the other. And so we can feel safe within that experience. So although visions may come to us, bodhisattvas may talk to us, we may have ghosts visiting us, all sorts of things can go on. It's a much safer space, but we can feel that we are in control of this space and we can easily come out of it, should we get too worried with it. Because we know we can relatively easily drop back into that body awareness and be distracted, back into our hindrance. So what I just wrap up really is that this state, this access concentration, although it's a relatively modern inspiration from a true practitioner 1500 years ago, it is a state worth exploring now and it's a state for this time, for our time, because we need it. It is important to emphasize this state, getting people to this state. It's a worthy goal to aim for within our meditation. Okay, I think that's my time, and I need to stop there.